You're listening to Living Free, your podcast for a life full of freedom and magic. I'm your host, Tanja Hirsch, and I hope that every time you listen, you feel a little bit more inspired to follow your intuition and to create a life beyond your wildest dreams. Welcome back to the Living Free podcast and to our podcast special Soul Naked, where we dive deep and undress on all levels, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And today I have my dear sister Sarah Warner as my guest, and it was such a juicy, alive, raw interview where we dived into the masculine, the feminine energy, how you can see if you have a wounded part or a healed part, where you're maybe out of balance. We dive into the art and the power of ritual and ceremony and how it has impacted her life and helped her to step into the priestess, into this mystical woman that she really embodies. You will feel her energy when she starts speaking. She's magnetic, she's radiant, she's so powerful and fierceful, and I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. We also talked about how we can bring the feminine essence back to this earth and how it will help our planet to evolve, and why it's so necessary for us as women to step back into our power, into our true wisdom, into our intuition, and to stop all these sisterhood wounds, why we have to feel our feminine lineage. And without further ado, I welcome Sarah Warner to the podcast. So welcome to my podcast, Sarah. I'm so honored to have you here.
Thank you, sister. I'm super happy to be here in our naked skin together and dive in. Really honored and really excited.
So the first question I would like to ask you is, what does living free mean to you?
Okay. It's a good place to dive in. So, yeah, I'm feeling like living free is to feel freedom in my body, to express and explore my body, and to really reveal from moment to moment how I feel and what I long for. So it's the freedom, that embodied freedom. It's really important to me. And then I'm also thinking of like psychological and spiritual freedom, to really allow myself to explore spiritually and be really free in that space, to not hold any cages or limits around that space for myself, and then also psychologically and emotionally to really to live the life where I'm pulled to most. So the one that's in my deepest alignment. And so I think freedom really goes hand in hand with bravery. You know, that we don't always choose the safety, but really are brave and choosing the life that really resonates with our heart and our desires. For me, that's real freedom. Mm.
So beautiful. That resonated a lot. And I think you really embody it just by your presence. I can really sense that you're living by that and not only speaking about it. So I would love to know, before we dive into our topics today, what made you the woman you are here today? Like this embodied, feminine, mystical, beautiful. How did you get there? Because I can imagine it's not been an easy journey for you to really be free from the inside and in your life.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
That's a big question, so you can
It's
choose.
a very big question. So I'm just like,
You can
you
choose
know,
what you want to share. Maybe a
I'm
bit of
almost like,
your
what
journey.
didn't make me the way I am? You know, what didn't make me the way I am? Um, it's a very good question. I feel, I feel it has to do with claiming our the full story and our full life and taking full responsibility over that. You know, whatever childhood we have had as people, to and whatever way we grew up, whatever way we taught and were conditioned, to really take full responsibility for our lives and our stories, be it blissful moments or tough moments. And you know, then we come across these pivotal points in our lives that really shape us. And I think that makes us who we are, right? And for me, you know, they've been really beautiful, beautiful moments. Like the moment I chose to really go down this path and really, really go into the healing journey and really surrender myself into this path of empowerment. Like those are really, really beautiful moments that really shaped me. And then there's also parts of things that were really tough in my life that made me who I am, you know, and that could have been like, you know, I started modeling when I was 17 and it showed me the entire world. And it also made me incredibly disembodied. And I really suffered with a lot of like eating disorders and disembodiment. And I think that those things are also make you who you are because they really taught me and made me so much stronger and so much softer and so much more compassionate. And when I used all these, when I started to really embody and to take full responsibility for my story and my pain and my longings and my true alignment in life, all these pivotal moments in my life actually became strengths. You know, they started to become medicine for other people. And I believe that is the real journey of being on a mission and being on purpose is to claim your life and claim what has happened to you and to use those moments that really shaped you as medicine and to being of service to other people. And I think that's a really big part of what I have done to make the journey easier for other women and to really use you know, my egg and alchemize that into gold and gifts for other women. That's been a really big part of it, huge part of my journey. And then the last part that I want to add is I believe I was born for this. So I didn't really become anything, you know, I just kind of unbecame. I have traveled to like many different like past lives and had many visions, and they were always about the feminine. They were always about priesthood. So eventually this life was a gift for me to become who I was before. And I think that's all really divinely aligned, our entire life, if we really trust it and really take responsibility for it, really heal and feel through it, then we become who we were and who we're meant to be here on this planet. And I'm just back in that, you know, back into this feminine force that I think I was made to be here on this planet in this time. And yeah, and and all the medicine that I teach or that I share or guide, I don't like the word teach so much. They were just my joy, my pleasure. They were just things that I was naturally pulled to, you know. And that's where your gifts are. That's where your gifts are. And then to share that your gifts with your kind of transformational story together, that's who you are in service in your mission. And that's where I'm at right now, you know, back in the alignment, in the magic that I was here to share.
So beautiful and powerful. When did you discover you had this purpose? When did you feel like there's more to this life than you were currently experiencing back then before you were really stepping into?
Yes, yeah, beautiful. Well, I think like many other, I guess, healers or guides, you kind of know when you're a kid and then you lose it, right? I was such a witchy kid, and I was so like so curious about the universe and how everything worked and about God and all of those things. And then I lost that because, you know, my parents are atheist and it wasn't really stimulated in that sense. They're amazing human beings, just, you know, we didn't align in that way. So I started to rediscover it. I think I was about 29 and I just felt, you know, I was like doing some journeys here and there and some yoga meditation, but it was like not, I wasn't fully in, you know, I was just like doing like the la-di-da side of spirituality, and and that's okay, you know, that was me at the time. And at some point I decided, I just felt a pull, like it's time to really, really dive in, you know, and I started going into deeper ceremony, and I just made a decision, you know, and I just started to uncover myself and uncover my traumas and uncover all my layers. And yeah, that's the best decision I ever made. And then very, very quickly in ceremony, I was shown that I was made to uh, to 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 bring the real feminine, like the real divine feminine connection back to this earth. That I was made to connect, like kind of like the heavens with the earth. And uh, what I mean with the heavens with the earth is like the spiritual with the just the psychological and the more grounded way of the feminine. And I just became obsessed for like 3 years. I studied everything I could about masculine and feminine energy and about polarity and like really the depth of that. Um, and I just like every time I was in ceremony or in deep meditation, I was just getting more visions about where to go and what to expand into. And it just kept on going deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more I healed my own personal aches and traumas and the ones that were stored in my lineage, the freer I became to seeing like the bigger picture of what I was here to do, you know. And that just has just been keeping expanding. Like I know that is my mission, but like every time I uncover new threats, and sometimes I think I got it. I'm like, oh no, I'm doing embodiment, and I'm, you know, like this is my thing. And then suddenly I'm like, now you have to go into sound and voice and deeper shamanism. And I'm like, okay. And I just, you know, venture out into that aspect. So, you know, it's, I don't think you find your purpose or your mission. It's more like an uncovering of it, and just a beautiful journey that is the one of the soul. So it has no end, really,
Mm.
you know.
So beautiful.
Mm,
I could really resonate in every word you said, because healing the feminine was also like my journey too. And the pull you
yeah.
were describing, I kind of felt it too. How did it show up for you? Was it an inner voice, or was it a feeling, or did you just intuitively know you had to go somewhere or do things? How did it show up for you, this inner pull?
Like how I was shown that I was supposed to work with the feminine.
Yeah, when you said before, you just felt this inner pull to dive deeper and to
Yes.
discover your purpose.
Yes. Mm. Um, there were a couple things like it was mostly in, it was in ceremony, and I was healing through a lot of kind of feminist ache, like through my mom's and my grandmother's and great grandmother's lineage. And what I really felt was that that I was supposed to let go of that control, that tightness, that masculine energy that kind of hides inside of a lot of feminist patterns, right? And I looked at my thumbs and I saw them switch from my mom to my grandmother to my great grandmother, like this switching things, and they were getting more older and then younger again. I saw this like, and I just heard this. I don't know if it was a voice or just like a message that I felt arrive into my field, and just saying that. It's time to cry for them and to soften this and to be that change in your lineage. I think I cried for like 6 hours at night just for all the tears and all the control and all the hurt that they couldn't soften into. And then I really got a message, you have to work with breath and with embodiment. And like with breath was the message. And I never done breath work in my life. And then I just ventured on and I just followed it and I did all sorts of breath work, and I just created my own module very quickly. And very quickly I was teaching it at retreats, and I was teaching about the feminine. Yeah, it just kind
So,
of
so powerful.
it's just, yeah,
And I think that's what
yeah.
happens, right? If we really have the courage and step into the purpose and discover what's waiting for us, it kind of aligns more easy than when we hold on to things we think we want to do. Like even if you discovered embodiment or breath work, you could have stayed there, right? Because it's comfortable, you know
Yes.
you're doing, but it takes so much courage to step out of that into the unknown every time, even though you've done it before. It's so much strength that you show. So I'm really
Yeah,
proud of
for sure. Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. Thank you so much. Yeah. It does take bravery, you know, it's like, it's really sweet. I think, I think like my father asked me, he's like, when is it gonna end like these ceremonies? Why do you need to go again? Didn't you heal like all this stuff? And I went, and I thought about it, I was like, that's an interesting question. Like, why do I feel a pull to go back? And one, I don't have a lot of explanation for the things I do in my life. It's just because I feel them, and they're a really, really solid reason for me to do things. But my answer was also is like you look at it from like a psychological perspective, and I understand that you would think like that's solved now, so why would you go deeper? But if you look at it from a soul perspective, it doesn't end, right? And there's the humility and a devotion. I think devotion is the right word, and surrender to that path, you know. And if that pulls you in a different direction, then go there. And the world's gonna find it difficult sometimes because we're very used to, you know, I study this and I become this and da, da, da. It's like very, you know, this is what it is, you know. But the feminine is not about that. The feminine is about you being your consciousness and people being attracted to me for who I am, and not only for a particular practice that I teach. It's a lot of different things. So it's going to make people, and maybe even yourself, a little bit uncomfortable sometimes to be okay in that space of not knowing, you know, that feminine creation that has no bounds really.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think also our purpose is not what we're doing, but how and why we're doing it. And it's just, I have the feeling just being in our field does something to people. We don't even have to speak, just our energy can trigger people or heal people or, yeah, does something to people. So,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, why are you attracted to work with someone? Is it because they have a certain degree, or like no one? Like I've done some, say some workshops or degrees, but people don't care. They really don't. You know, they want to work with you because they because you're you,
mhm,
and the same for you. You know.
so
Yeah.
true. So, before we dive into the power of ceremony and ritual, I would like you to describe the difference between the feminine and the masculine energy and the wounded part and the not the healed part for people who haven't worked with these kinds of energies yet.
Okay. Not a big question, but I'll try
Yeah.
to. I'll try to. So keep it short. Okay. So it starts with that we all have a masculine and a feminine energy inside of our being. Every one of us, gay, straight, men and women, gender fluid, every one of us has them. Yeah. Um, so, in the simplest way, I would say that the masculine is consciousness and the feminine is love or energy, right? So the masculine is, I'm gonna broaden a little bit into it so you have more of a feel, is like depth, the container. It's this space that is trustworthy, protective, grounded. But it can also be action. It can also be this kind of warrior energy. And then the feminine is kind of what fills that space up. So if the masculine is the conscious as the container, the feminine is what fills up that space with her energy, with her love, with her light, with her beauty, with her emotions. That's it. So some people like to describe it as like the riverbank with the river. I like to say like the container, and then what fills up the container are consciousness and love, right? And we are all born with a natural balance, a natural yin and yang, natural masculine and feminine balance. And then during the course of our lives, we get conditioned. We are conditioned with a balance that often isn't natural to us, right? And why is that? It's because we live in a society that's mainly dominated by a wounded masculine energy, the patriarchy. And so not a masculine, it's a wounded masculine energy. And what that does is kind of, it triggers everyone into a balance that isn't natural to us, right? So it can really, for instance, in general, it closes like the feminine in men for them to express their emotions and be in their emotions, and to hold like calm and safe space for the feminine. And then or it can be for the masculine to be like maybe overly focused on like greed or control, right? And then for a feminine being, it can have this effect that we close and start protect ourselves. It can also have an effect on us. There's so many, but yeah, that we adopt a more of a masculine role, as say a feminist example, that we start to become this boss ladies that are really like tough and non-surrendered. We can do everything ourselves. So I'm just giving you some examples, right? So the beauty of this work when you start getting into it is you start to really unpack like, what is my natural, oh, it's my cat. It's okay. Her cat medicine is like, what is your natural balance and what have you been conditioned with, right? And it's really like, honestly, I believe one of the most powerful journeys you can undertake, and you might agree with me, to actually get clear on that and start rebalancing that. And how do we rebalance it? There's practices, there's meditations, there's shadow work. We can't go into everything right now. But basically, that's the gist of it. So you have the natural, like the healthy masculine, the healthy feminine, and then you also have a wounded one. And the wounded one is basically the masculine or the feminine who isn't living through the heart. That's honestly the easiest way to look at it is through the heart, right? So if you look at the masculine side, as I mentioned before, it can come out in like greed, very money focused, controlling, dominating, in it to win it. In it to win it. That's the masculine. Wanting to fix everything, diminishing the feminine, objectifying the feminine. But it can also be a disempowered one, whereas they would be like having no backbone at all, being like, that's also a wounded masculine. Yeah. And then go back to the feminine. A wounded feminine comes out in like this kind of neediness or seeking approval, needing approval, dramatic, manipulative kind of behavior. And it can also come out in the passive way, where she doesn't express her emotions at all and it's just this really passive state. So we all have some wounded masculine and feminine in ourselves as well, all of us. So it's not like no one gets away with it. Just some have it more than others, you know. But when we get conscious on them, we can start becoming empowered, and it's so beautiful when you start doing that. And what you also may notice is when you start rebalancing these energies in yourself, you will start to attract different relationships, which is pretty crazy that we naturally may, you know, I started to, not too low, I started to, I was like adjusting my webcam. I was like, well, there's my boobs. Like, okay. So, sorry. You know. So, yeah, I started to actually attract more masculine men because I was going in more into my feminine, and this is kind of the second part. I don't know if you want to go into that fully, but this is polarity. And so when you start to work on your inner balance, that will ripple out on the outer and in your relationship, and that's polarity, and it's a beautiful practice to dive into, to and knowledge to really yeah, to gain, is how does that affect your relationship. And yeah, it's so beautiful and juicy. So yeah, and I think that's also a big part of tantra is you know, getting in your natural alignment again, your natural masculine and feminine energy, so you can really step into the sexual realm in an aligned and embodied way, you know. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think so many people find themselves in these words because sometimes we're not even aware that we have these patterns and these wounds, and
Yes.
just run for so many years with these imbalanced energies. And then at one point it clicks and it all makes sense. Like I also used to be like
Yes.
everything on my
Yes.
own, for example. I couldn't accept myself. I was
Yes.
very controlling, and I knew I had to do it all by myself, I thought. And then
Yes, because that's what we're taught. You know,
yeah.
we're taught, here comes the cat. Like, just let her. Like, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It just, it's so mind-blowing because we think life is against us and we have to be alone, and then you suddenly realize, oh, I choose to do it because I continued these patterns. And then when you go into the feminine healing journey, like you said, you attract different partners, you suddenly allow yourself to receive. Sometimes we don't even see the blessings that are coming. We don't allow ourselves to receive because we're so blocked around our hearts. Yes, so thank you so much for sharing. And
Yeah,
I would love,
that's a really valid point. It's very important, actually, that because I asked like some of the women in my circle, like, what have you been taught what feminine is? And you get two answers. You get one part that's like doing everything by yourself, being independent, don't need a man, da 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 da. And then like the other part is like surrendered, passive, like surrender to a man, like quite obedient, right? And both of them aren't an empowered feminine. Both are natural, right? The real feminine is it's fierce and soft and compassionate and embodied and sensual and fierce, and you know, all those beautiful things that are truly feminine and mystical, right? And often we just aren't aware of that exists, this other part, you know, not these disempowered states that aren't natural to us.
yeah, so true. So I would love to dive into the art of the power of ceremony and rituals right now, because I know it's a huge part of what you do. It's a huge part of what I do. And we've been doing this for thousands of years. That's why some women tell me in these rituals, like, oh my God, this feels like I've done this before.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I have been here many times.
Yeah.
This feels way too good. Like, even though it's hard, like this feels like home. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Especially
yeah.
when women gather together, I have the feeling there's a magic, you can't describe it with words. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. If women come together in sisterhood and not by comparing or by jealousy, it's the most nourishing and empowering space to be in, to really open up for healing, right?
Yes, I agree. I agree. You would almost think you don't need a guy anymore if you're in that space. Like, uh, you know, but honestly, like, I think just one thing there is like there's it's so important to distinguish between needing and longing. And like one of the huge aspects of feminine is longing, that you still long for the masculine, you still long for him to take you deeper, you're still long for him to hold you, you know. But you don't need it as such, and that's a little bit different,
The
you know. Just
desire,
want to,
not not
sorry,
the
yes, and
desire.
to allow yourself to feel that and through your body. And often when we are needy, we haven't allowed ourselves to long, we haven't allowed ourselves to desire, right? And it becomes this neediness. So I think to really allow that longing and that yearning to just to radiate out and through our bodies is so essential in feminine practice. Yeah, just a little side note. Okay, back to the sisterhood. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
True.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, how are you sharing? Like, how do you share your rituals and ceremonies, and what are the most powerful you joined in your journey so far?
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, So I do a lot of rituals myself when I'm alone, and there's tons of different ones. I'm not one to have like a strict practice all the time. Right now, I'm really into sound bowls and singing and my drum. That's really what I'm pulled to at the moment. But maybe next time it may be dance or breathwork or deep meditation again. So that's different. But I do use a lot of herbs, and I burn a lot of herbs, and I do like prayer a lot, and the use of the sound bowls and my voice in this time. This is my ritual for this time. So I have an online community called Hasea Tribe, and I share a lot of sisterhood and a lot of rituals and practices with them, and also in the retreats. Um, and then also another place in Spain where I do a lot of retreats, but that's also with plant medicine. So that's a little bit different. So we work a lot with ayahuasca and with hape. It's the main medicines there. Um, so yeah, like I'm not like I do hold the retreats together, but I'm not there that I feel myself I'm qualified enough to hold space as the like one of the main shamans. I just help in the retreats, you know. Um, so there's so many, but I'm just gonna pick one to keep it to clarify. Um, this retreat this summer there were many retreats, and there were two really beautiful rituals that we did, and one of them was that there was music and there was a circle of women standing around in a circle, and everyone was dancing to the music, and every woman was invited to go into the circle for a transmission. And when they were in the circle for this transmission, the women around the woman in the middle would encourage and mirror what she was doing with sound, with their bodies. And it was what happens in that circle is absolutely magical. Like you think something's going to happen, you think you're going to dance or move a certain way, and you get in, and the force of everyone around you, it's like a rebirth. Something just bursts through you and come out. Some women cry and shed, and some start to channel, like whatever needs to come through you will come through if you're held by the force of these women really holding you with their power together. Oof, like even thinking about it, it's absolutely magical what happens in that circle. Another thing I've been guiding this summer is actually tantric pleasure practices. I never thought I would do that. Um, but yeah, I lead women in like a really beautiful, deep breathwork practice. And then you're invited to really discover your edge also with where and how you want to touch your body. And there's complete freedom. So eventually, a lot of women go into self pleasure, and you're in this circle, and it's just like this beautiful energy. of freedom, and I feel completely comfortable in it. Completely, I'm like, this is fun. This is beautiful. I'm like, everyone's so beautiful, and just like, and the sounds and the sexual energy, um, and I just feel so honored to be able to hold that space for women in and where shame is dropped and where real sexual power is being awakened, and all the pain that we carry in our wombs can be shed. And the ritual of that is beyond too, beyond. So these are two really, really powerful practices I've been really enjoying this summer. Um, Besides plant medicine, I mean, for me, ayahuasca is her. I have a close relationship to her, and she, or the spirit of this plant, is very important to me and in my journey. You know, that's not for everyone, but it's a real big part of me, of sitting in ceremony around a fire, and being with spirit and being with your soul. You know, it's it's so powerful. You know, and sometimes I feel we lost a bit of that. You know, we in the cities and we just go out and have drinks together or eat, but when do we really look into each other's eyes and have a transmission? Where do we really touch each other? When do we sing together? You know, when do we sit around the fire and share? And I really want to introduce that back also in city life. I think it's so important.
Yeah, because it's part of our nature, right? We always used to sing, we used to dance, we used to live in community.
Yes.
And we as women, we even got our periods together, you know, we went into away from men, and that's when we get insights and we were connected to our intuition. And when we learn to reconnect to our essence and to nature, after feeling it comes back, we learn how to channel, we learn how to trust our intuition. And I understand now why it was too powerful at one point. I mean, that's why they burned this, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
that's it. Yeah.
it's it can be scary sometimes. I sometimes know things that I cannot know, you know? I can't describe it with my head, but I know from my soul that it's true, and it's always true. And that's also the reason why I came to this island. Like, I just sold everything in Germany for a place I haven't been before. I just knew deep in my soul I have to go there, and it's been the best decision. Like,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, and I think the feminine isn't here to be understood nor captured or fixed. The feminine is here to be loved and to be held space for and to be invited in. And that's what we want. We want to be felt. We want to be trusted in the oracle that we are, because we naturally have that deep connection to the divine. It's just covered by a lot of layers, you know, and a big part of that is because it has been so powerful, and it is a threat uh, to the patriarchy. It's a threat to a masculine that rules, because it's actually untamable. And once you remember that source, whew, it's like, oh my God, that is my feminine fire. That is my depth, and no one can take that away from you. I really don't believe that that's possible, and it's to regain and remember that strength, that mystical remembrance. I mean, that's it, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why it's so hard to describe with words also the power of the ceremonies and the power of women gathering, because we didn't grow up like it. So many people don't even know it. But once you've been in one of these circles, it's, yeah, you can't describe it. You have to feel it. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
It's like yeah, and it's like coming home. It's
Yeah.
like coming home, you know? There's no expect like I remember I've been my most raw, and I've had a rough journey with medicine. You know, some people have like, oh, they have like nice ceremonies. Mine have always been like it's like into the void, dark, whipped, trembling, drooling. Like it's been like you know, like yeah. Anyway, so it's fine, you know, it's a part of me, and maybe one day it'll get more smooth, but um sorry, so it's like um even with that, even with that, I still felt so at home, so at home in these spaces. And I think that's a big part. We gather and we connect in devotion. And devotion is so essential also, again, for the feminine, to return to that feminine, men and women. And we miss devotion in our daily lives in so many ways. True devotion. And true devotion is embodied, and it's with our full body. It's not just singing, maybe in most churches, as you said, it's not an embodied experience, you know. And I think we also need that space where we can be our big self and completely raw, as I have been in ceremonies. And these people saw me and saw my soul, and it was never too much, and it was loved. And that has been the most healing experience, that in my bigness, in my full soul, in my full rawness, they actually loved me more, and they saw it as powerful, and that wouldn't have been always in this society. So.
Yeah.
Right?
So true.
Yeah.
I also have
And
the
then
feeling
your sister's like, yes, like, yes, I love it, and you start bleeding together. There have been 2 women at my last retreat who didn't bleed for like 2 years, and it just happened again. And I'm just like, how can you explain that? You cannot go like, you cannot explain what happens there.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we even have it when we don't do ceremonies, when we spend a lot of time with women, we start to synchronize our cycle. Like,
Yeah.
no one can explain why this is happening. It's just
No, it's deep wisdom, deep synchronizing, and deep connection to the moon as well.
yeah. Yeah, and I also have the feeling it's in direct, how do you say? So the more we live away from nature, the more we disconnect from this wisdom. And it always starts by firstly unconditioning, of course, but I think it happens naturally when you start getting connected to nature again. If you walk barefoot, if you give your blood back to nature,
Yes.
you really
Yes.
feel nature. If you feel you're part of it, you're not disconnected. And that's when it
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the most powerful thing you can do is come back to your cycle and the seasons of your cycle, which is nature. You know,
we're not meant to function
Very-
every day the same. We are
no, no, we're not. We're like this, It's just like, no, we have a monthly cycle with a lot of different seasons, and I think when we allow ourselves to just flow through them and not attach so much to them or suppress them, or not allowing ourselves to feel the big palette of emotions that we need to experience, especially as feminine beings, that's when it gets hard. That's when we burn out. That's when we lose our alignment. So we need that freedom to be cyclical beings.
it's hard in a city life though, right?
Yes, it is.
They want
Yes, and
function.
it's like the little rebellion to kind of gain that here and there, to but as far as we can, there's many ways in how to, you can bring your feminine back into your life, It can be small moments of tapping into your breath, of dancing, of feeling, of crying, or coming to sister circles. You have a beautiful platform too. Um, of really following our cycle and living with the ups and downs and the seasons of our cycle. There's many ways how we can invite in little bits of feminine into our lives, and it changes a lot, even with little moments.
So even doing
Right.
in class instead of a vinyasa class on our first day of leading is like a
Yes.
game changer.
Yeah. I used to like go kickboxing like when I was in my period. I was like the dark feminine was never hard for me to like really. I was like, bruh, just like I love her, like this wild, sensual, fierce, and then like yeah, for me that wasn't the hard part. It was more like finding a bit of that lighter feminine again. Like yeah, it was oh god, crazy. Like But yeah, yin is better than kickboxing when you're on your period. Oh Lord, yeah.
Oh, so beautiful.
Mm.
So part of your purpose and a huge part of your work is bringing the sacred feminine back to this earth. And for those who are listening, what can you share with them, tools that they can use in their everyday life so they really can connect back to their true feminine essence?
Hmm. Yes, you have beautiful questions. um, all right. Well, one of them, as I just mentioned, to start tracking your menstrual cycle and really get a feeling of what you go through in your month. So, not just I have my period and I don't, but you have a spring, you have a summer, you have an autumn, and really track like how are you feeling, what your moods are, and really starting to get in sync with your blood cycle again. I think that's a really big part of your feminine. I also would recommend uh, capturing your blood and giving it back to the earth or your garden or your plants, and maybe do prayer with it. Um, if you've never done that, it sounds like maybe a bit new or for some people yucky, but it's actually quite a primal, powerful, mystical experience to connect back to your blood. Yeah. Um, then embodiment. Embodiment is a big part of coming back into your feminine. So find an emotional release practice. Find a good breath worker, dance. We really, really need that space where we can be raw and on the floor and cry and make sound or be quiet, but just to have that freedom of just letting our feminine raw. I think it's very, very, very important to experience that and invite that back into our lives. I think embodiment is very important. Then devotion. It's find a spiritual practice in every way that suits you. Our devotion is where we connect and sever and not sever, where we strengthen our connection to the mystical and to the divine and to our body as well. And that's really what most modern women don't have. So to reclaim that by having a short morning practice can be lighting a candle, maybe manifesting your day, asking for some help, beautiful way. Um, and it can be simple like that, or you can really expand it into so many layers of what your practice can be. So find a devotion. I think that's very important. Um, in some way to connect to the goddess and invite her back in. May also be through nature, if you're more into like nature bound um, or the elements, that's possible too. Um, and there's so many, but I think the last one I would say to start living from pleasure again. We're so indoctrinated to be in the mind first, in the ratio first, and to think and understand and make sense of things first, and to push and push and push and do and go go go. The feminine is wiser. She knows how to tap into alignment, into your pleasure or your aliveness first. What makes you feel alive? What brings you pleasure? That joy you're starting to feel, it's starting to kind of open up in you when you think about that. That is your alignment. That's your magnetism. And when you're connected to that, you're in your connection to source. You're in your magnetism, and that's where you're not alone. That's where all kinds of beings and all kinds of energy around you starts to work with you, with the universe, right? So let that be first. Feel that first. It has to be feeling first, pleasure, aliveness first, and then invite in structure to support that. What we do, and that's the healthy masculine, is a structure. That's the container again, right? What we often do is invite in this mind control first, and that's where our bodies exhaust and where we're alone and we have no help. There's no real inspiration, no real kind of channel coming through, right? So um, living from pleasure is very important, and of course pleasure also links into um, our sexuality, and really coming back to loving our bodies and loving our sexuality and exploring that. I think that's a really big, huge part of pleasure too. So those are kind of four things that I said. It's like your blood cycle, embodiment, devotion, and pleasure. And that's a lot of feminine practice, yeah.
Thank you so much.
And join a sisterhood.
Yeah.
Join a sisterhood. Like we need each other, okay? It's like we really need each other, and to we have sisterhood wounds a lot, you know. There's been so much comparison and just blah, you know, that can I swear on this podcast? All that bullshit, you know. So it's just like so important to come back to sisterhood and support and being medicine for each other and mirrors for each other and awaken and whew, like mirror each other is so important. So now I said five things.
Thank you so much.
They're very essential.
Yeah,
do you want to add? Do you have something to add to that, or do you quite resonate?
I resonate a lot with it. Yeah, for me, the biggest change was the sensual dance and the singing also. To allow myself to speak my truth, because I had a huge block in here. Even when I was teaching yoga, I felt these words coming through. I was channeling, but I didn't allow myself to.
Yeah.
And then it felt like someone is, you know, touching my throat.
Yes.
And yeah, through singing, I really learned to express myself. Even in relationships, friendships, I learned to stand up for myself and not always, you know, be a people pleaser, but really to speak up and set boundaries. And yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. That's a very strong one too. Boundaries. Oof. Is it like, but I would say that boundaries not only feminine, but for every being. If you want to step out of any codependency into your sovereign being, boundaries are an intrinsic part. Boundaries are so powerful. Like I do a lot of boundary work with clients, and it's so beautiful. Yeah, boundaries, like, yeah, it's funny, yeah, but the throat as well, like free expression and boundaries. It's like I wanted to add something to that. Let me think. Yes. Maybe we can link that in with embodiment, just to find things that don't require focus, that don't have an end goal. So that can be embodiment, that practice, but it also can be singing or anything that brings you pleasure. There we go. Like that's not linear, but that's joyful, and just because, you know, pleasure. Painting can be, I love putting oils on my body. Like I buy really nice essential oils and I mix them and put them on my body. I like buying roses, cheesy roses. I love it. You know, like cooking with love, like, you know, heart-to-heart conversations, laying on the floor in a seashore or whatever, and like just staring at the ceiling, like, you know, like these things that are not, those are feminine moments of just pleasure, and they don't have a goal, and that's when you expand your feminine. One note with that as well is that when the feminine is in focus, then we are using our testosterone hormones. So, and when we deplete them, we go into cortisol. We all know that's a stress hormone. So if we keep on going and going and going in this mind, we're not in our pleasure, we're not in our feminine alignment, we burn ourselves out very quickly, and we become exhausted and drained. And for men too, but they have a little more testosterone than we do. And when do we recharge our hormones is when we're in pleasure. So that's kind of fascinating. So that's natural for us. That should be our natural, you know, a part of our natural being.
Not only the pleasure in sex or in the bedroom, it's pleasure in the moment. The more we allow ourselves to be present, we can see the beauty and the pleasure. We can receive the pleasure in every single moment. When you eat a fruit, you can receive pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Now the wind is
Yes.
coming out through the window and I can feel it on my
Yes, I
skin
can
and
see your hair. Yes,
like
exactly. That's it. And
pleasure.
pleasure for no reason. It's like, it's just because you are, just because you're born, just because you exist. And right now and it's our birthright, it's our natural state as feminine beings. Now often it's like this cherry you put on top at the end of our week as something to be deserved, something to work for, to be earned. And that's the downfall, and that's the conditioning we have around pleasure, and that diminishes our feminine.
Yeah. It's the whole ice
Right.
cream. The pleasure is not the cherry. It's like let's
Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah. With a chocolate cone. It's like yeah, yeah, for
oh,
sure.
thank
I
you
love
so
that.
much.
I
There's
love
so
that.
much wisdom in your words, and I wish every woman who's listening implements one of these
Mm.
5 things you shared, like really in your everyday life, because it changes so much. Even one thing, even just connecting back to your cycle, even just dancing for one song with your eyes closed, just to allow
Yes,
your body
yes,
to move
yes.
intuitively can change so
Mm,
much in the way you show up in
mm,
life, in the way you show up for yourself.
exactly. I love that because when you just said that, I just see like these little lights turning on in this world, this little poof poof, little feminine light starting to expand that energy on the world, in the world again. You know, now there's so much wounded masculine, so we're in this rebalancing phase, right? And I read something yesterday. It said when the feminine rises, the new earth arrives.
Yeah. Oh,
It's so simple, but it's
goosebumps.
so true. The feminine rises, a new earth arrives, and that's what's happening right now. And that's when so much darkness is coming up. It's because we're shifting, and it's a very, very important time to actually stand in your light and stand in your alignment and stand in your bravery and stand in your pleasure.
Yeah.
And I just see when you set that up, this dance, that these little lights are starting to shine across the earth, and it all connects in these fields together. And it's so important that we're doing that work and staying connected to that to that light source, that is the feminine, that is love, that is creation. And we're rebalancing that now,
Yeah.
from the inside out, this new earth arrives,
Yeah.
and it's really a beautiful time for that.
Very powerful. And I think it's so important to allow yourself to be seen and heard in all of this, because if you do it alone, I've done it kind of alone, and it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. It can be
Yes,
too
yeah,
much.
for sure.
So if you have
Yes.
someone to share it with from the heart, it's
Mm.
magic. It's
Yes, and that's an open heart. A vulnerable heart is a portal for other people. And this can be lonely if you go on this journey and you're uncovering all these things, and you're starting to see and see more and see more and see broader and see broader. You're going to be the odd one out, but there's all these lights around the globe who are doing the same, just as we met so randomly and so beautifully. And to really to keep connecting in on those our stories, from our heart, also even on social media. I've met so many beautiful people because I was starting to be myself, online. And yeah, it's very important.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's actually my
Mm.
favorite part of my work. I love the rituals, I love the embodiment, but if someone speaks from the heart,
Mm.
you can feel the person.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if it's in a retreat, in a sharing circle, or if it's online and we share from the heart, and you can see the eyes
Mm.
tear up because if someone
Mm.
speaks from the
Mm.
heart, there's no judgment. There's just this compassion.
No.
You can feel this person, and this, like, nothing makes me feel more alive than if people drop the masks and allow themselves to be seen in their full vulnerability. And there's
Mm.
magic if you allow yourself to really be honest and to share from that place. That's where the
I
healing.
totally agree. It's eventually a revolution of the heart. It really is. And it's from the mind to the heart. And it sounds so simple, but it's so profound. And I'm just every time I discover new layers of the heart and the power of it and the depth and its wisdom, and it knows everything. It's connected to the entire universe. And oof, you know, the force of the heart. It's about coming back to that, you know. And I totally agree with you. Like when you feel someone really being in the heart and speaking from the heart is the most daring, brave, vulnerable, opening, enlightening thing, you know. It really is. And yeah, it's so beautiful, you know. That's it. Eventually it's the heart, and that's where the source that is love that we all are is housed, and where you connect to.
Just remembering who we truly are in the end, right? We've always been
That's it. Yeah. It's like, oh wow, I've been taught something very different. I am so powerful. I'm a divine being. Like, holy, you know, this is exciting. Like, yeah.
Oh, thank you
Yeah,
so
it is a
much.
remembering.
Yeah.
Thank you for your beautiful questions and your beautiful work. I really see you and your light, and it's very inspiring and very yeah, very radiant and very hopeful to see. And I'm really honoring you for your work, and super happy to connect to you on this journey.
Thank you so much. Oh.
The island's lucky to have you. Beautiful mermaid has returned to the island.
Yeah, it really feels like I belong here. So it's hard to describe, but it feels so natural for me to be
Yes,
here.
yeah.
It never felt natural to be in Germany or in a city. I always had tried to adapt, but yeah, it's not
Yes, I
always.
hear you. I'm also, I live in Amsterdam now, but the next step is to move to nature. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I see you in nature. I see
Yeah, yeah.
more green than ocean. Are you connected to the jungle or something?
I am, yeah. Mostly in Costa Rica. I've had a
Yeah.
really powerful time there. So we'll see. I'm really open to let myself be led into like the next place. And I'm really just like just excited. I'm like, where will it be? You know? Where am I needed? Where am I pulled to? And yeah, that's a devotion, just like you know, I follow that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy, so I really see you and I honor you that you follow this one. Always adapt and stay flexible and open and receptive.
Yes, exactly. That's one of my shamans where I study. She said, you know, we're on a shamanic path, and it's not because we want an easy life, but a powerful life.
Yeah.
You know,
In a real
an
life.
empowered life, a real life. You know, I want to feel it and experience it and go into the void. And yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So thank you so much
Oh.
for sharing your wisdom, your medicine. I don't know you, but I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. Yeah.
And I have one last question to wrap this
Yes.
conversation up. I ask this question of my guests. So imagine you're young again. Sometimes an age pops up. It doesn't matter how old you are. And back then you didn't know what you know now. What would you tell your younger version that would have helped you on your journey a lot?
Oof, that's a good question. I would say you're right, and don't let anyone tell you differently. Like, because I felt so many things as a kid, and I was told those things weren't true or silly or weren't right in so many ways. I would have told my little girl, trust your heart because you know, and don't let anyone tell you differently. Because I knew a lot of things as a little girl. And I would also tell her to slow down,
Mm.
to slow down and to trust. Because I have a big drive and I have a big lust for life. Um, but I wasn't born with a lot of patience towards myself. And I had to learn that. I had to learn to be patient, to be soft, and to trust, and really surrender to life. And so I want to tell her, you're right, you know it, and slow down and trust.
So, so
Really trust life.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have so many similarities, like you were.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, like, one woman's story is every woman's story. And when I share, it resonates with you. And of course, we have a similar path and we may have more resonance, you know, a lot of resonance. But I really feel like when we tell our story, storytelling is beyond powerful, writing is beyond powerful, sharing is beyond powerful because it triggers remembrance in each other, you know? And we come home together, you know? Hmm.
So, how can people connect
Thank
with
you.
your magic?
Okay, so you can find me on the gram, Sarah Warner, SarahWarnar, Sarah Warner, or on hasea.tribe. Um, and yeah, that's it for now. I'm working on my website. It'll be up soon. But through my Instagram, you can find all my offerings. You can join Hasea. That's a tribe that you can join right now. Otherwise, there'll be retreats coming up. I'll be sharing offerings online. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So I will link it in the show notes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, beautiful sister. I feel you in my heart. I have like a real heart connection. I'm super happy. It's so beautiful. You're 12 hours like time difference, and we just got to connect in such a naked way. And that's the new earth. You know, that's it. You know, no masks, no conditioning, or less conditioning, a lot less, and just raw and beautiful. You know, heart shares. That's really it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Okay. Mwah. So much love to you, sister. So much love. Thank you.